The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Epictetus. You've been loyal. You gave people access, your time, your thoughts, your trust. And what did they return? Silence, distance, or worse, betrayal dressed as friendship. Every man has felt it, that gut punch moment when someone you stood by used what you shared against you. Not strangers, not enemies, but the ones you let in. This isn't just about backstabbing, it's about how not to be an easy target ever again. In a world where loyalty is fluid, perception is everything, and silence can be power. You need more than good intentions. You need a strategy. In this video, we'll break down 7 Stoic rules that will reshape how you move. How do you protect yourself without paranoia? How to test trust quietly. How to command respect without ever raising your voice. These aren't tricks, they're tools for real men who've had enough. And you're not alone. Every strong man has walked this road, trusted too soon, forgiven too easily, stayed too long. But today, that cycle ends. What comes next is clarity, strength, calm power that doesn't explain itself. So if you're ready to stop being underestimated and start living untouchable, stay with me. These aren't just rules. They're armor, forged in fire, backed by philosophy, ready for real life. Let's begin. 1. Give trust slowly, take it back swiftly. He wasn't the kind of man you'd expect to fall for it twice. Quiet, focused, kept to himself. But still, he made the mistake. Trusted too soon, gave too much. And when the betrayal came, it didn't roar, it whispered. A leaked conversation here, a shifted tone there. By the time he realized, the damage had already walked through the front door he left open. You see, betrayal doesn't always come with blood and drama. Sometimes it arrives wearing a smile, speaking softly, and shaking your hand. And often, it's not your enemy, it's the one who used to sit beside you. The one who learned where you're soft, the one who knows where to strike. That's why the first rule is simple, but it isn't easy. Give trust slowly, take it back swiftly, not out of paranoia, but out of discipline. Because trust is not a gift, it's a contract. And every contract must be earned, tested, and renegotiated with time. Men who get hurt the most are not always weak. They're often the ones who believe loyalty is permanent, that once earned, it stays solid. But reality doesn't work like that. People change, circumstances change, and when pressure shifts or profit appears, even those who once swore loyalty may quietly realign. Seneca once warned, "A man is not worth your friendship if he can be turned by chance or gain." That wasn't cynicism. That was clarity. Stoic clarity. Because the Stoic doesn't resent betrayal, he prepares for it. He watches, he tests, and he keeps his emotional capital locked behind proof. So how do you test trust in a world of masks? You never confront. You never accuse. You simply watch what happens when something small leaks into the room. Share a detail, minor, trackable, not dangerous, but enough to follow. If it comes back to you through another voice, another shape, then you have your answer. No drama. No need for confrontation, just adjustment. That's the quiet test every man should carry in his pocket. And it doesn't stop with words. Observe how someone speaks of others when those others aren't around. How do they react when you have nothing to offer? If loyalty only appears when you're useful, it isn't loyalty. It's self-interest in disguise. Real trust isn't earned in comfort. It's revealed under pressure. Who defends you when you're not there? Who keeps your name clean when no one's watching? These aren't soft questions. They're survival questions. And when the answers come, don't ignore them for the sake of harmony. Because the cost of misplaced trust is rarely just emotional. It's reputational, professional, sometimes irreversible. When betrayal shows itself, don't demand apologies. Don't explain your pain. Don't chase clarity from someone who has already shown you their priorities. Just remove access, quietly, permanently, and never reopen what was already compromised. Some will call that cold. Stoicism calls it wise. Because wisdom is refusing to build your foundation on shifting sand. It's choosing peace over popularity, discernment over desire. It's understanding that you are the gatekeeper of your life, and every person who walks through must earn their stay, again and again. There is no honor in being endlessly forgiving to the undeserving. There is only erosion of time, of energy, of dignity. And a man who wants to move through this world without being broken must learn how to watch quietly, act precisely, and walk away completely. Let them call it overreacting, let them call it ruthless. But when the dust settles, you'll still have your integrity intact, and they'll be left outside the gates they never deserve to enter again. Number 2, guard your image, guard your power. It doesn't take long to lose control of a room. Sometimes it only takes one moment of oversharing, one poorly timed confession, one unguarded conversation with someone you thought was safe, and suddenly what you said in vulnerability becomes a weapon someone else sharpens in your absence. You've probably lived it. You spoke from the heart, maybe during a rough week, a hard decision, or a private doubt. And the next thing you knew, people started looking at you differently. Quieter in meetings, slower to consult you, colder in conversations. Not because you changed, but because your image cracked. You gave them a map, and some of them read it too well. Men forget this. In the real world, people don't respond to your intentions. They respond to your presence. And your presence is shaped not by truth, but by perception. It's not fair, but it's real. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus said, "Keep your philosophy inside. Let your actions speak." That's not repression. That's strategy. Because when you show the world your fears, your doubts, your emotional bruises, you're not being brave. You're being exposed. And exposure attracts opportunists. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming someone no one dares misread. A man who knows his pain but doesn't broadcast it. Who feels deeply but speaks carefully. Who carries himself like a fortress, not to push others out, but to protect what's sacred within. There's nothing stoic about being robotic. You don't need to hide your humanity, but you must filter it. You must train yourself to know who has earned the right to see you unguarded and who hasn't. Your story isn't public property. Your pain isn't community theater. It's private ground, and not everyone gets a key. Think of it like this. 2 men walk into a storm. One wears his fear on his face, speaks anxiously, and opens his hands to the sky. The other says little, eyes steady, movements precise. He's not pretending he's not afraid. He's just decided that his fear will not become public currency. Which one do people rally behind? Which one do they doubt? It's always the one who looks composed, even if he's bleeding inside. And that's not deception, that's discipline. A man who can hold his form under pressure commands natural respect. He doesn't need to demand loyalty, he earns it in silence. Your image is your armor, and armor only works when it's intact. Show cracks too early and you invite testing. You invite a challenge, you invite betrayal disguised as concern. But keep your posture strong, your tone even, and your reactions calculated, and people will think twice. Not because you threatened them, but because they don't know where your lines are. Mystery isn't manipulation, it's protection. In a world of noise, composure is power. In a room of emotionally reactive men, the one who stays still becomes the one everyone watches. Not because he's loud, but because he's unreadable. And the unreadable man is the hardest man to betray. You don't owe anyone full access to your internal world. You owe yourself control over how much of it you expose. That's not selfish, that's survival. And the sooner you stop treating openness as a virtue, the sooner you'll see who actually respects you and who just wanted ammunition. So next time you're tempted to vent, to share, to bleed in front of those who haven't earned your trust, pause, breathe. Remember, the moment you speak, you give power away. The moment you stay silent, you keep it. A man's image isn't just how he looks, it's how he holds his space. It's what he allows and what he withholds. And in a world that's watching, waiting, and often willing to use what you give, it's not cruel to stay guarded, it's wise. Because in the end, it's not the loud man who avoids betrayal. It's the one no one dares to underestimate. 3. Cut deep, cut once, then walk away. If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. That's not cruelty, that's protection. That's how a man survives betrayal and walks forward untouched. You don't get stabbed in the back by strangers. The blade always comes from someone who is close enough to hug you first. And when that cut lands, there's a split second where your heart asks for an explanation, but your instinct already knows the truth. They knew what they were doing, and they did it anyway. Most men fail not because they were betrayed, but because they handled betrayal with hesitation. They gave second chances, left the door cracked open, waited for apologies that never came, and in doing so they let the wound deepen, not heal. But a Stoic doesn't wait for closure. He gives himself the dignity of a clean exit. When someone shows you they are willing to destroy what you trusted them with, your reputation, your time, your peace, you don't ask why. You don't seek justice in conversation. You deliver it in silence. No second confrontation, no warning, no public fireworks. Just one irreversible decision. In the world of men who carry quiet strength, there's a phrase that matters more than forgiveness. He doesn't come back. That's the reputation you want. The one who, when wronged, doesn't plead, doesn't chase, just disappears. And in that disappearance, he leaves behind a silence so absolute it echoes. Imagine a steel trap. It doesn't hiss, it doesn't warn, it waits, and when it closes, it doesn't open again. That's how your boundary must operate. And yes, it'll confuse people, especially those who were used to your softness. They'll wonder why you didn't fight for them. Why didn't you explain? But the answer is simple. A man doesn't negotiate with betrayal. He outgrows it. In the workplace, this looks like documenting disloyalty quietly, building your options behind the curtain, and when the moment is right, pulling the cord and stepping out, while their mask is still slipping. You don't burn bridges. You let them collapse under the weight of their own actions. In your personal life, this means no long texts, no dramatic exits, no let's talk. Just silence, just absence, just a complete revocation of access. Not because you hate them, but because you respect yourself more than the comfort of keeping people who showed you they can't be trusted. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who caused the harm." That's what it means to move like a man, not to retaliate, but to make your life inaccessible to those who ever thought they could diminish it. You may not feel strong in that moment. The betrayal stings, your pride bleeds, but your response is what builds the legend. A man who cuts once, deep and final, becomes someone no one crosses twice. And what happens next is always the same. The ones who wronged you will speak. They'll try to shape the story. They'll feel the absence you left, but they won't feel the right to re-enter. Your silence will be louder than their excuses. Your absence will carry more weight than any confrontation ever could. So next time someone crosses the line, don't raise your voice. Don't seek pity. Don't leave space for return. Let your departure be permanent, cold, and clean. Because in a world where most men beg to be seen and understood, the man who walks away without a word is the one they never forget. 4. Earn respect without chasing approval. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it, wrote Seneca. And one of the greatest wastes of a man's life is chasing the approval of people who don't even respect him. You've been that man before. All of us have. You worked late to please a boss who barely noticed, laughed off disrespect from a friend to avoid conflict, said yes when every part of you wanted to say no. You thought being liked would buy you loyalty, but instead it bought you silence, distance, maybe even contempt. Here's the truth most men learn the hard way. The more you bend to be accepted, the easier you are to discard. In a world that rewards strength, boundaries, and quiet authority, too much kindness without backbone is a liability. Respect isn't something you can request. It's something you command, through presence, not performance. Through restraint, not noise. The way you walk into a room without needing to prove anything to anyone. You don't get there by being loud. You get there by being unshakable. Think about the man who never over-explains, the one who doesn't share his every thought or seek validation. He moves with purpose. He sets the tone. And when disrespected, he doesn't raise his voice. He simply corrects once. If the line is crossed again, he's gone. Not out of rage, out of self-respect. His absence is his answer. That's the kind of man the Stoics had in mind. One who sees dignity as sacred, who understands that giving everyone access to your energy makes that energy cheap. Epictetus put it clearly. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid by others. Not because you are, but because you no longer need their approval to define your path. Real strength doesn't beg to be seen. It makes itself felt in silence. When you stop chasing applause, you start attracting respect. Not from everyone, but from the right ones. Men who are respected rarely talk about being respected. They just live in a way that makes others think twice before crossing them. Their presence does the heavy lifting. And it's not because they're cold, it's because they're clear. They are kind, but not soft, generous, but not naive. They're not angry, they're just unavailable to people who waste their time. They understand that boundaries are not walls. They are gates, and gates are meant to open for the worthy and close without guilt for the rest. So, how do you move like that? You stop over-explaining. You stop justifying your choices to people who've already shown they don't value you. You don't try to be the nicest man in every room. You aim to be the most grounded. And when the world tries to shake you, when someone mocks, tests, or disrespects, you don't react. You remember who you are, and you leave the table without a scene. Because men who carry their worth in silence are the ones no one wants to lose. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them wonder what you'll do next. And when you do move, let it be decisive, clean, final, no theatrics, no explanation. Just the kind of clarity that makes people question how they ever thought you were someone they could toy with. You don't need to be loved by everyone. You just need to be respected by the right people and feared by the ones who ever thought of stabbing you in the back. Not because you're aggressive, but because your composure says everything. And once you stop chasing respect, that's when you start owning it. 5. Move in silence, strike without warning. You don't win by being the loudest voice in the room. You win by being the one no one saw coming. Every time you overreact, every time you rush to defend yourself, every time you explain what didn't need explaining, you give the enemy something priceless, your playbook. They learn how to get under your skin, where to press, what triggers your fire. And from that moment on, you're not in control anymore. They are. You've seen it. You've lived it. Maybe in the office when someone twisted your words in a meeting and you bit back in frustration. Maybe in a relationship when passive aggression pulled you into a pointless argument. You got loud, you got emotional, and when it was over you felt smaller, not stronger. Because you weren't playing chess. You were reacting. And reactive men are predictable. Predictable men are easy to break. Real power doesn't declare itself. It watches, waits, measures. And when it moves, it doesn't repeat itself. This is the kind of quiet dominance Stoicism trains you to live by. Not through detachment, but through command. You don't let your enemy know you're offended. You let him wonder if you even noticed. And in that uncertainty, his advantage crumbles. A man in full control of himself becomes unreadable. And when you're unreadable, you become unplayable. You don't tell people what you'll do. You show them. But only after it's done. No build-up, no announcement, no permission. Your movements are your statement. Your silence is your sword. And your restraint is what makes that sword sharp. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that strength comes when your face stays calm, your voice stays even, and your eyes say nothing. The storm might be inside you, but outside, you are stone. Imagine this. You're provoked in a meeting. The guy who thinks he's clever takes a shot. Everyone watches, waiting for you to break character. You don't. You blink once, you nod, you shift your gaze, and you say nothing. No anger, no defense, just a mirror. And in that mirror, he sees his own insecurity staring back. You didn't win with words, you won with presence. You made his ego fight itself. And that's the kind of defeat a man never forgets. In the battlefield of influence, silence is not weakness, it's dominance. It forces people to fill in the blanks. They imagine what you're thinking, they wonder what you'll do, and most importantly, they fear the answer. Because the mind always exaggerates what it doesn't understand. So train yourself like a soldier of calm. When you want to fire back, wait. When your hands shake with insult, breathe. When your pride screams for a reaction, listen, but don't obey. Because the moment you break your stillness, you break your edge. But if you stay composed, they start second-guessing everything they thought they knew about you. This is how powerful men move. Quietly, intentionally, without needing attention, but never without command. The world may try to provoke you, distract you, pull you off center, but if you remain anchored, no one gets to move you. And that's the kind of strength betrayal fears most. Not revenge, not noise, but silence so controlled it becomes a weapon. Not because it wounds, but because it reminds others, this man doesn't flinch, he doesn't fold, and when he finally acts, it's already too late to stop him. 6. Master yourself before you move the world. Most men want control over their careers, their relationships, and their reputation. Few realize that none of it matters until you gain control over yourself. You can't lead if you're constantly triggered. You can't protect what you've built if your emotions are open doors anyone can walk through. You can't be unbreakable if you've never faced your own chaos in silence. You've been in that moment. A friend says something off, a colleague undercuts you, a partner throws a low blow, and your chest tightens. Your instinct is to fire back, to defend your name. But when you act from emotion, you're already at a disadvantage, because emotion makes you readable. And the readable man is the vulnerable one. The Stoics didn't teach coldness, they taught clarity. And clarity begins where impulsive reaction ends. As Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. The man who can pause before responding, who can hold his tongue even when it burns, is the man everyone watches closely, and no one can manipulate. It's not about bottling up. It's about directing your fire instead of leaking it. It's about walking through conflict like a lion through smoke, silent, present, and unfazed. Not because nothing affects you, but because you choose what's worth your response. And most things aren't. This kind of power can't be taught by books. It's trained through discomfort. Every time you resist the urge to explain, defend, or please, you forge something sharper inside. And with each repetition, you move from reaction to intention, from being someone others control to someone no one can read, much less predict. Imagine this. You're in a heated negotiation. Someone throws in a provocation, trying to rattle your balance. You don't flinch. You let the silence hang. You nod slowly, you wait. And suddenly, they're the ones fidgeting, oversharing, compensating, not because you attacked, but because you didn't give them anything to feed off. That's psychological high ground. That's leadership without noise. Marcus Aurelius warned that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you spend your life letting every insult, every betrayal, every irritation paint you, you'll become a reflection of everything weak around you. But if you filter, if you observe, if you step back and choose your color, you become something solid, something that doesn't shift with the wind. There's a kind of strength that doesn't yell, that doesn't swing first. That doesn't rise to every challenge thrown its way. It just is. Like a mountain in a storm, it doesn't panic when the sky breaks. It waits. And when the storm clears, it's still standing, unchanged. You've seen men who move this way. Quiet men. Men who don't explain their decisions. Men who speak only when needed. Men who are calm even when chaos circles them. People may not understand them, but they don't cross them. Because there's something about stillness that unsettles those who rely on reaction. This is how you stop being easy to betray. Because the man who masters his inner world walks into every room with unspoken authority. He doesn't need to prove who he is already that. His energy is not scattered, his presence doesn't invite nonsense, and his discipline, emotional, mental, verbal, is what makes him untouchable. You want peace? Begin by not handing your power to every small disturbance. You want to stop being backstabbed? Stop wearing your emotions like open wounds. Patch them up. Guard them. Show strength without showing everything. And let your self-control be the quiet armor no one ever sees until it's too late to break through. 7. Reflect calm, not chaos. The best revenge is to be unlike him who did the injury. Marcus Aurelius. That's not a slogan. That's strategy. When someone tries to drag you into their storm, the worst thing you can do is throw your peace into the fire. Because once you match their chaos, you lose your edge. And worse, you lose your mirror. A man who reflects calmly becomes a force. Not because he's passive, but because he refuses to give his enemies the satisfaction of a reaction. When someone provokes you and you don't react, they don't see indifference, they see themselves. And most people cannot stand that. Because now their cruelty, their insecurity, their petty games all echo back at them with no place to hide. It's not your job to teach people how to treat you through arguments. It's your job to be unshakable enough that they adjust themselves without you lifting a finger. Let me put it this way. If a wolf howls and you howl back, it becomes noise. But if a lion stares back in silence, the forest goes quiet. That's the level you're aiming for. Still, present, unreadable, dangerous in the best way. Because your silence doesn't signal weakness, it signals mastery. You're not suppressing emotion, you're wielding it like a blade kept sheathed until the moment matters. You've probably had someone throw bait your way. Sarcasm, insults, guilt trips dressed as kindness. And in the past, maybe you bit. You got pulled in, you defended yourself, tried to clarify, tried to fix their warped perception, and all it did was drain your energy and hand them power. But what if next time you didn't bite? What if instead you gave them nothing? Just a steady gaze, a small nod, maybe even a smile that says, "You don't get to disturb this peace." That moment, your restraint will shake them far more than 1,000 words ever could. The Stoics knew this. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And one of the ways we waste it most, getting pulled into drama that doesn't deserve a second of our breath. When you engage, you feed the fire. When you stay still, you starve it. And in that stillness, you keep your clarity, your dignity, your power." This isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming so grounded in your own values that nothing outside of you can shake what's inside. It's about recognizing that your mind is your kingdom, and not every clown gets an audience. You don't need to prove yourself to the unworthy. You don't need to respond to every jab. Your silence is your fortress, and only those who bring peace get to enter. In the end, it's not the loud men who are respected, it's the composed ones. The ones who don't chase, don't flinch, and don't give away their stillness cheaply. These are the men others think twice about crossing. Because when you become that mirror, when you reflect rather than react, the people around you start checking their own behavior instead of testing yours. So ask yourself, next time someone tries to provoke you, will you play the game, or will you step back and let the silence do the talking? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. When you walk through a world filled with ambition, betrayal, and silent agendas, strength isn't found in aggression. It's found in mastery, not of others, but of yourself. These 7 rules are not just defenses, they are disciplines. Each one, a shield forged in the fires of stoic clarity and quiet confidence. They are habits to be sharpened daily, because protection isn't a one-time act. It's a way of life. Trust slowly, guard your image, cut clean and walk away. Earn respect, not attention. Move in silence. Rule your emotions before you try to rule anything else. And reflect calm when the world throws chaos your way. None of this is easy, but every man who has walked away from betrayal stronger than before. He didn't get there by accident. He trained, he practiced. He chose dignity over impulse, clarity over noise, and composure over collapse. This isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming steady. Not out of fear, but out of self-respect. When you live by these rules, you stop being someone people can easily use or manipulate. You start becoming someone they measure their words around, someone they hesitate to cross, someone they respect in silence. So begin today. Don't wait for the next betrayal to harden you. Let wisdom prepare you now. And as you do, share your own story in the comments below. What moment made you realize the value of emotional self-defense? What changed when you stopped reacting and started observing? Your words might be the mirror someone else needs. Remember, quiet strength is not a performance. It's a decision you make every morning. So make it, and keep making it, until it becomes who you are.